First of all, just to go back to Ms. Garvin, farmers aren't idiots that if something isn't working, you know, like they're not going to keep giving it because you'll know what'll happen. An animal will die. And as bad as farming is, they're not going to keep letting that happen around the country. So this thing about, you know, the oversubscribing of medicines, you go into the vet and you have a cow with mastitis, or you want a dose for hooves or worms, you can get the same thing within at the vet as you can get down the road. So like, just because you get a piece of paper that says, here, you need that for them, is the vet going to come out every time and watch you throwing it down the throat of the beast or giving the injection? Now, I'll tell you, it's actually, what's happening, or what the way this department is looking at this, is frightening for farmers around this country. It's absolutely frightening to think that that's the mentality because of a task force or something. And I'm going to ask one thing, because a bit of common sense needs to come into this. Mr. Ford, are you liaising with Europe, yes or no?
So, thank you, Deputy. We have written to the EU on this question to see would Ireland...
No. But are you directly, or who is liaising with Europe?
So, I was in the middle of answering the question, Deputy. We've written to the EU Commission to see could Ireland avail of the derogation, which I think is at the centre of today's discussion, which is 1054, and the message we got back was we can't. Right.
Does anyone pick up a phone and talk to someone to say, why can't we do this? What other ways is around it? Or why haven't we gone down the road that the British has gone down by, even if there's extra courses, in fairness to all the people that spoke today, are willing to do it, to bring them up to the standard that ticks the box. But I'm going to ask you something now. Are you willing, and with the chairman's approval and the rest of the committee, that we'd bring you back in 6 weeks' time, are you prepared to pull back from where you are and some of the stuff that has been said here? Are you prepared to sit down with the people involved to thrash out a solution that will be good for the department, good for Europe, good for the dispensers, and that it solves the issue above all for the farmers? Because what we are facing here, and let's be honest, is that the small farmer, no more than what Deputy Ring talked about earlier on today, about the Tesco's and the Lidl, the small shop below in the middle of nowhere in Ireland, but the small farmer as well, think of them, wouldn't be able to afford what's coming down the road if we go with what's being proposed at the moment. Thank you, Chairman. And I want to know, are you prepared to go back to the drawing board to sit down with these people? Just this crack of driving on in a regulation is a regulation, and we all know that. A directive is a directive. There's a dispute at the moment over 1054, right? Let's see. There's legal evidence there and there's legal evidence there. Let's see how we can marry it up. But the one thing we need to do, if I'm a vet, I went to school so long, but it's more than medicines I trained in as a vet. I trained how to do sections, I trained how to do different things. But why can't we get a course like the Brits done to bring the person, the suitably qualified person, up to the standard so that Joe Bloggs below in the sticks where I'm from or someone else is from can issue that and be responsible. There's no one condoning anyone not responsible. But the one thing I will say, that at the end of the day, it's a farmer that doses his cattle. It's a farmer that gives the injections to their cattle. They don't go around willy-nilly just deciding every week, should we throw this into them and this into them. Every farmer knows that you change the dosing as you're going along. And the one thing I don't want to see is that we go down a road that there's vets coming in, day out, to farmers' yards. And I think I would ask you to relook at this completely. Just pull back, everyone pull back from where they are. And sit down responsibly with the people that's involved to bring out a solution. And this can be done in a week or 2 weeks.
Okay, Deputy Fitzmaurice.
Thank you.
I just want to say, I guess, at the outset that the views shared by members today, we are absolutely in agreement that there are huge challenges with this regulation, and we're also absolutely committed to working with all the stakeholders on how we address them. So the comments from Deputy Fitzmaurice and Deputy Ring about meeting with the stakeholders as soon as possible, we are already proactively engaged in that and have been since last year. our anti-parasitic stakeholder group, we've already had 2 meetings of that, and the third one is planned for a couple of weeks' time. So I assure you that we are working with them as closely as possible. I already mentioned we have an action plan with 37 actions, different subgroups responsible for those actions. All the stakeholders are invited to be part of those groups, and we can share that action plan with you if you wish, or provide greater detail at a later point. So I want to assure you that we are working with them all, and we are very acutely aware of potential competition issues, and that forms about 5 or 6 different actions within that action group, as to how we're going to address that. So I hope that gives you some comfort. In terms of interpreting legislation, Deputy, I guess we have to take our advice from our legal services team and from the Attorney Generals, but we will absolutely work with all of our stakeholders in what we can do in that respect. When we mention about what other jurisdictions do, I think it's probably of note that Ireland and the UK up until now have been the only countries in Europe that provide antiparasitics without a prescription. Every single other country in the EU requires a veterinary prescription to access antiparasitics. In terms of the North-South challenge, again, this is something we're acutely aware of, something that our stakeholders have made us aware of. So we do have a close working relationship with our northern colleagues. We actually only had a video conference yesterday with our colleagues in the Veterinary Medicine Directive in the UK, who have responsibility for regulation of Northern Ireland, and we agreed with them that we would establish a memorandum of understanding about how we will address this issue with suitably qualified persons. Because if a suitably qualified person in Northern Ireland were to provide medicines to a farmer in Ireland, that suitably qualified person would have committed an offence. So we will have protocols there that we can inform them of any such things. But I guess in any area where you have a border, any economic activity in Ireland, you're going to have different laws, different regulations, and it's a challenge for both jurisdictions as to how that's managed. So I want to assure you that we are working with our Northern Irish and UK counterparts on how we address that. Just on the residues question, Chairperson, I agree with you. It's an excellent programme, and the results over that in the last number of years show how safe the Irish food market is. And whenever we have third countries coming here to Ireland on trade missions, they always ask for a presentation on a residue programme. It's something we can always very positively tell them about. But I guess from the residues perspective, I think what you were talking about was food safety and for the consumer, whereas I guess our concern with antiparasitics is really for the farmer, that I guess the scientific evidence shows us that a lot of these products just aren't working anymore, and so it's in all of our interests to use them as prudently as we can to make sure that they are there to the benefit of farmers. That is not to blame anyone throughout the supply chain. That was never suggested, I think, by my colleague or any report that's ever been put out there. It's just to say that we all need to work together to make sure that they're used responsibly. And in our action points, again, that's addressed. We want to work with responsible persons, with vets, with farmers, to upskill everyone's knowledge about how these products should be used as effectively as possible, and that's in all of our interests. So I hope I've addressed the different points there, but I'm happy to take anything else either.